But joining us now, Jason Mariner is a candidate for Congress for Florida's 20th Congressional District. His legislative priorities take on the policies of President Biden, climate change in Florida, and et cetera. He's a Republican. He's pretty Trumpy. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, Julie. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks. Busy, but that's a good thing when you're running for Congress.
Yeah, so that district, Fort Lauderdale and West Palm, tell us about it.
Well, it's a district that's been, quite frankly, left behind on the federal level. Decades have gone by, and District 20 has not had appropriate or proper federal representation. It just takes a quick drive around the majority of the district to see that. The streets are bad. Crime is an issue. Drugs, homelessness, poverty. It's falling apart. And, again, it's largely due to very, very poor and non-existent at that federal representation. And I've looked around for years and years, and I've asked, why do we keep hiring people to represent us who are completely and totally out of touch with who we are as a people? So
this is the former Alcee Hastings district?
It is.
Yeah.
It's a special election. The election's being held, the in-person portion of the election is January 11th, and vote-by-mail ballots are starting to drop as we speak. And, this vacancy was created, and, the direction the country is going in, I wasn't so inclined to wait another year to run for office, so I jumped into this special election, knowing the odds, from what people tell me, are not good. But quite frankly, I don't mind bad odds. I'm rather good at beating them. I've done that since I was born, and I intend to continue to do that.
Yes, tell us about yourself. You seem quite colorful.
Colorful, yes. Well, my skin is. I'm covered in tattoos. I'll tell you that. Each one of them does have a very special meaning to me. But colorful, yes. I was born premature. I wasn't. My lungs were very underdeveloped, and this was in the 80s. I made it through that, and then I was adopted. I was adopted at birth, and had a very troubled youth. I just could not seem to get along with other kids, fit in. I was picked on a lot. Bullying was a huge issue for me. But one thing I had going for me is my parents had put me in martial arts since I was 2. So I became a fighter, and I competed in international tournaments, and I sustained, around 15 or 16, a very bad injury. Had my right pectoral muscle totally amputated, and the doctors put me on OxyContin. Now, it was needed. I'll tell you that. I was in pain. I had this major surgery done, and I was in scaffolding. That's what it looked like. I mean, I had this big shell around my torso and these rods, holding my arm out at a right angle. And, one day I went to the doctor, and they took me off of the pain medication. And this happens a lot. It happens every day. And when you have someone on medication like that for so long and you just take them off, it produces, most of the time, an addict. You can't be on that stuff for that long and not become addicted. And this is a big problem in our country, and it's only getting worse. Last year, it was 93,000 Americans who succumbed to addiction. They died from it. And this year, we're already past the 130,000 mark. And that's a terrible number. It's killing more people per day than the Vietnam War. And just now I'm starting to finally see some traction in the news, people talking about it. And it's one of those issues that really impacts South Florida, and it needs to be handled differently, quite frankly.
What was your experience with opioids?
Horrible. They put you on it for the pain, obviously, and then, one day when you're taken off, you figure out, it's almost like a time machine. You wind up looking back, and, years of your life have disappeared. You have a rap sheet. you've been incarcerated, or at least I was. I alienated myself from my family, friends. I was unemployable. And it was really only till I found, my formula was finding God and getting closer to God, helping other people, that I found a way out of that cycle. And once I got clean, things got great. I started a small business, a family. I have 2 beautiful young sons. And now I'm a congressional nominee, which, that's a message that America needs to hear. There's a lot of people who think that, I don't have a college degree, or I don't have, I didn't major in political science, so I can't for some reason run for office. And that's absolutely not the truth. I challenge anybody who would think that and remind them that Benjamin Franklin, probably one of the most brilliant men to ever walk the face of the earth, and certainly one of our most prominent founding fathers, he went to school for 2 years. So you don't need to have a formal education. Now, as for my education as it pertains to running for office, I was a bit of an odd kid. I was into history, American history, world history. I've read the Constitution a couple hundred times, and my knowledge of that is really what precipitated me to and inspired me, to be clear, to run for this office. Our founding fathers laid it out pretty clearly. When you feel that the government is starting to push you around and abuse you, you get up and you do something about it. And in this case, for me, it's running for office to provide that representation that's needed for people. And it's not a tall order what District 20 is asking for. It's school choice, better, safer, cleaner, drug-free streets. We got to look after our youth. We've got to bring faith back into the center of the community, and we have to protect jobs. Now some of this is local stuff that has not gotten accomplished. There's a city called Belglade or Pahokee, for instance. They don't have street signs in parts of these areas, and they don't have paved roads or sidewalks. That's a state. That's a local issue, but it's existent because there has been zero proper federal representation, and there needs to be somebody out there advocating for people, which I'm intent on doing. My opponent on the other side of the ticket seems to want to cripple District 20, to assert that you're going to hand out $1,000 a month to anyone making $75,000 a year or less. That's going to add $1 trillion a year to the deficit. It's going to increase it by 25%. It's going to keep people beholden to the government. We want smaller government, less regulation. We can run our own lives, leave us alone, get out of our hair. We as Floridians are pretty well equipped to run our own lives. Now, I'm not saying that we couldn't use some help in certain areas. The environment's one of them, for example. The Army Corps of Engineers, they're working on the Clean Water Act with a good friend of mine, Congressman Brian Mast. And that's one of those things where this is why they have different members of Congress and hundreds of them, 435 members of Congress. He and I will be working together to improve the water issue that occurs year after year. But we don't need the federal government looking over our shoulder at every single thing that we do. We just don't. So when I get to Congress, like I was mentioning before, this $1,000 a month thing and increasing the minimum wage to $20 an hour, like my opponent wants to do, is going to, again, it's going to hurt people. It's going to hurt small businesses. You can't pay somebody $20 an hour to flip hamburgers. That's just a simple economics lesson. Minimum wage, I believe the minimum wage should be raised because the cost of living is going up. But if you're going to, let's just theoretically say that it was possible for 1 second to give everybody that kind of money, right? It's just going to drive up inflation. So while you might be receiving more money monthly, it's going to be offset by the cost of living. Gas is going to continue to go up. God forbid that were to happen. We're going to be who knows what we're going to be paying for gas? $12 a gallon. I don't know. That might already happen.
I'm sorry, Jason. We have to wrap it up there, but thank you for coming on the
Sure.
show today. Good to talk.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
God bless you, and God bless America.
Oh, indeed. Jason Mariner is a candidate for Congress from Florida's 20th Congressional District in the Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach area. He's a Republican. It's a heavily Democratic district. Stay with me. I'm Julie Mason. You're listening to Sirius XM.